Are we witnessing sort of like Lumon's attempt to sort of perfect a version of Severance that they haven't been able to do before?
For whatever reason, Lumon believes that what makes a soul pure are these kind of triggering scenarios and these woe-inducing memories, even if you want to call them memories.
I think if everyone is the result of all of their experiences and you have a traumatic experience, I think they're trying to perfect a human being that is free from the sins and traumatic experiences of their other selves. I think they're trying to make the clearest human being.
Welcome back to the Breakroom. This episode changes everything. What episode changes everything? That's right. It's time to discuss episode 7 of Severance Season 2, Chikai Bardo. I am John Costa, and joining me to answer all of your questions, he spoiled the death of Ivan Illich for me. It's Erik Voss.
Hey, I feel like I spent some of this week in the Wellington room because I got a root canal and this soreness is not going away.
That would have been a better, hey, why don't we take that again? He spent a week in the Wellington room. It's Erik Voss.
Yeah, and I actually did get a root canal, and unfortunately, I do remember it.
Bummer. You should have gotten the procedure before we went in.
Yeah, I think I would voluntarily sever myself if I could just have all doctor's dentist appointments and gym sessions.
That is amoral, Erik. Immoral. Still writing her thank you notes. It's Gina Ippolito.
I have never been gifted a grouter before.
It's a degrouter, please. We're going to get into all of your questions and more about this incredible episode of TV. But first, I guess we owe a thank you to Ben Stiller personally. I'm just going to say, he wrote our name down on a list somewhere. We got sent an incredible box about 20 minutes before this taping started of a mystery Lumon something. We haven't opened it yet, but we're going to do that right now.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Evan, what do you think? Should I open it back there or should I bring it up?
Oh, you should bring it up. I put it back there because it's too big. I didn't want it to cover Gina because I think it would cover Gina's face.
I'm going to get in that box later.
Is there another Gina in that?
Oh my God! Do.
All right, here we go. While I'm opening this, predictions on what's inside. I mean, we have a little bit of an image on the front.
Do we want real predictions? I still think human head.
It says NRSCO, Zach Huddleston, Eric/Jessica.
Wow. Fuck Gina and me, I guess.
So you're opening it.
I would have loved it if they had put Eric
Sorry,
V,
Erik.
Eric V and Jessica C.
Oh, yeah.
Your innies.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's going to be Christmas mints and various Lumon snacks.
I think it's going to be Lumon Goat Stationery.
Oh.
Here we go. Okay, there's a letter. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I'll do this first. Senior Refiner Audi gifting memo, Macrodata refinement. Hello, Audi. Okay, first of all, on the other side it says, thank you for your commitment to Lumon Industries. There is a QR code that we'll scan in a second. Hello, Audi. Your innie is more than just their role at Lumon. They're part of you. Inside this box, you will find a very special gift that provides a rare look at your innie's work life.
Oh my God.
Of course, this work, it is its own reward, but this hallowed vending unit features a glimpse into your innie's daily life. Thank you, Evan, for doing that. We don't want our Manitoba address leaked. And the vital, this unit features a glimpse into your innie's daily life and the vital work they do. Your innie's loyalty and commitment means the world because it can change the world. Knowing this should summon many emotions, including jubilance, rapture, and smiling. So, on behalf of all of us at Lumon, thank you for your continued service. We look forward to a new season full of the fruits of your innie's labor. Tune into the second season of Severance, Fridays on Apple TV+. In Kier's light, we walk. Lumon Industries.
In Kier's light we walk. What is it?
Praise Kier.
I'm just going to try to be mindful of
Microphone.
There's a battery in it.
some extra. Oh my gosh, there's another box.
Oh, it's
a box
boxes
in a
all
box.
the way down.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
Should we stand it up and turn it around?
Oh, it's pretty.
Oh my God,
Okay.
guys.
Oh my God.
It's a bunch of heads.
It's a little vending machine
You're right,
with
it is
Lumon
for roasting
Oh my
a
God.
tasty new snack.
We got a
Wait,
squishy friend,
Auditory
salted,
pleasure.
dehydrated, Yeah.
Oh, that's
Fireside
marshmallows.
Delight.
I bet that's marshmallows.
Wait,
Smart.
did we get some Lumon marshmallows?
I think for roasting, Fireside Delight is marshmallows.
I agree. A gear package,
gosh.
hand accessory.
Guys.
Oh, this says, please try to enjoy each perk equally.
Of course we'll try.
But can we?
Okay, I'm opening.
Like if
currently
I'm enjoying a
tasty
perk
new
too
snacks,
much, I have to
salted and
temper it
dehydrated.
down.
Okay, I'm opening Stress Control, a squishy friend.
Okay,
I'm
these are
opening pineapple.
cut beans, salted.
Oh yes, cut beans. Oh my gosh, it's
little baggie.
It's a little squishy cow. Little
This is
you don't
so
eat it.
cute.
well, this you don't eat. I
This
think
is- this
John's
seems
would
edible.
eat.
And then I also have some fruit leather dehydrated.
Some dehydrated
And that
fruit
includes-
leather.
I have a
It really is a little pineapple.
Ooh, a little pineapple.
Oh my gosh, should we bob for it
A little
later?
plant. It's a little like
Strawberries,
desk plant.
Lemon juice, cane sugar.
Mine says,
don't know what
congratulations on your new desk companion, an air plant. Be sure to submerge in water once a week,
awesome.
shaking off excess water before returning to its receptacle. When sunlight is limited in your innie's office, your outie world will be able to provide the low light conditions your plant needs to thrive through the winter and beyond. And winter's capitalized.
I think that's a real
Oh.
plant.
Yes. Guys, this is crazy. Thank you. Ben Stiller personally.
Thank you, Ben, personally. And truly a genuine thank you to everyone that watches our Breakroom after shows and our breakdowns of these episodes of television. We wouldn't get to participate in fun things like this without you guys watching, and it's been a real blessing to be able to cover a show, especially one as good as Severance has been this season.
John, this Christmas jacket didn't last very long, did it?
Well, no one...
No one gave you the proper recognition
Yeah,
that you
that's
craved.
right. That's right. I was angry.
I'm seeing John's jacket is so fun in the chat.
Yes, they want you to put
Thank
it
you.
back on.
It's here for me to torture Gina.
They want you to put it back on.
Oh, fine. I will wear a silly jacket for this whole episode.
Do it.
Okay, that was a fun little chaotic moment.
So pleased with my little cow.
Do you guys want to get into our discussion?
Let's get into
do it.
Okay, because there's so much to talk about, right? This episode was a wild, unsettling, depressing, honestly joyous at times episode of TV. We learned a lot about what's happening at Lumon and what's happening with Gemma, but
Did
I think
we?
we also have as many questions to ask as we have answers to give. Why don't we start with the Gemma testing rooms? We have a bunch of rooms. We started with this Wellington room, the dentist room. We had seen the dental tools in, I want to say, episode 3 of season 2, 3 or 4. And now it kind of pays off here. One thing that we learn almost immediately is that Gemma seems to have many different innies, not just Miss Casey, but innies that go into different rooms, and it seems like they're not all the same person, right? She says very
Definitely
quickly
not.
about the dentist, I was just here, even though it had been some time. Similarly, in the Christmas room, which the name I'm forgetting, she says it's always Allentown. She says it's always Christmas, which tells me that the innie is unique to each room or situation, right? I don't know if we want to say she was in a room during that airplane situation, although that maybe lends a little credence to the theory that the orc bow was a simulation, if maybe this plane situation was also a simulation. What did you guys take away from all of these different rooms in particular? They seem a little random, if not maybe just there to induce stress upon a person.
Honestly, which one of these three, like, so we see 3 terrible rooms, which are like dentist, awful, constantly Christmas and writing your cards, and constantly in the middle of a Lost-esque plane crash. I would choose the plane crash room. If you had to like be in one, I like that to me is the least bad of the 3.
In the year of our year, 2025, where planes are flipping upside down to land.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't want the dentist because that's physical pain. And it seemed like writing those degrouting thank you notes also caused her some physical pain. I want to choose the room that's just anxiety inducing. If I had to pick, which one would you guys pick?
Of those three, probably the Christmas room is what I would do. But there was also another room that was like some kind of gym class room.
Oh, that's right.
And I think I think the reason we didn't see it maybe is like the outfit she was wearing. Like, just if you're a teenage girl, sometimes on gym day, certain things happen that are very embarrassing. I think might be the idea of that one. I don't know if that's the case, but
I did like his outfit though in that room, which was very, very like Running Man 70s style.
Yeah.
Jason Sudeikis is going to be doing some kind of dance in the corner.
So I think these rooms are all like designed to be common anxieties, right? And it's not the act of doing the thank you notes. It's like that lingering, I need to do this thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, I have like 50 thank you notes to write. I'll get around to it. And eventually that builds up into like its own anxiety weight. So I think it's that. I think it's the lingering fear, the dread of like flying, of going to the dentist. It's just that experience that they're trying to bottle and capture. And then they've had Mark upstairs on the severed floor, selecting numbers that have some kind of quantitative measurement of whatever that fear is, and they're bottling it. And I think the reason why there's the fact that the Christmas room is called Allentown, and we know that was Mark's freshman fluke. That's what he got that paperweight for on his office desk. The reason why is because, God, it's such a heartbreaking moment, this episode. Like, when they finally decided to stop trying, and he dismantles the crib. Like, they go and they sit in front of the Christmas tree, and they recreated that room, and that's what Allentown is. And then both Mark and Gemma feel that on a deeper level in their subconscious so acutely that Mark was able to freshman fluke slam dunk that file when it came across the screen.
Yeah, so the Christmas tree in the room, all very similar to real life. I guess I want to ask you a couple of questions about these rooms. It seems like they're pulling actual experiences from Gemma's life. We also see two sort of like interesting details. One is she's writing a lot of those thank you notes with her left hand. We had seen her writing with her right hand in other scenes. She's filling out medical forms and things like that. I want to get your guys' thoughts on that. I also want to get your thought on, there's a moment where she's outie Gemma and she is preparing for her day, and they make a point to focus on her dental hygiene when she's not in the Wellington room. So that was also kind of interesting to me, why they would focus on her dental hygiene outside of the room.
See, I think she did that because when she first saw the red dress and the wig and the handbag, she was like, shit. Because she knows that when she wears this dress, it means she's going to whatever room makes her jaw hurt. And you also have to imagine, if your jaw hurts, you don't know why your jaw hurts. And that fucking sucks for a woman to have to go through. So she's like, fuck, I don't know what this is, but I'm just going to make sure my mouth is as clean as possible, because if it is a dentist, I don't want any cavities. I don't want any reason he'll be drilling in there. So I'm going to like take great care of my teeth. And I think either way, he's going to prod around in there and drill. And that's because the point of it is for it to be painful. That's why I think she's taking good care of her teeth. And yeah, I think Lumon did design each of these room scenarios based off of questionnaires that she and Mark filled out when they were getting fertility treatments. Because on that intake form, it said your partner will have to fill out a separate form. And I think from the moment they go to that Butzerman family fertility clinic, they started to get information on Mark.
And we see in that fertility clinic the doctor whose name is Maurer.
Dr. Maurer, yeah.
Teen Heartthrob.
We see him, Teen Heartthrob. Absolutely, he's going to win MTV's Best Kiss Award this year. We see him in that fertility clinic, right? Yeah. So clearly, this couple was targeted, I imagine. Maybe everyone in that fertility clinic coming in is a target, and they slowly weed people out with these mailers and things like that.
Do you think the targeting process could have happened earlier? Because they were giving blood at that blood drive at Gans University, and there was a Lumon logo.
Absolutely.
So I figured they must have been targeting even the academics of the area to try to find these partners and these couples and bring them together and see what soulmate. Because I think the reason why Mark and Gemma have been so successful and Cold Harbor is so important is they're the first couple that have had such a strong soulmate connection that even transcends memory. that they can kind of psychically and cosmically link together, and no other couple has had that breakthrough. If anything, this episode or this show, shockingly, is a testament to the power of true love. That true love doesn't need memory. I think that's a beautiful idea that Mark and Gemma love each other that much, that love has been able to be so profitable and exploited by the Lumon company.
And there are some similarities to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Absolutely.
And also that was the thing that they were able to cling on to was Meet Me in Montauk. So
Gina was right.
In Eternal Sunshine, as their memories of one another are being wiped, it's like one of them says, "Meet me in Montauk," and then that is the one thing that they remember, and then they re-meet all over again. So
It's so cool.
Before we get to the rest of the video, we wanted to take a second to thank today's sponsors like Mando. I'm actually wearing Mando right now, and I gotta say, I'm still smelling good after recording for a very long time. Mando's whole body deodorant comes in 3 forms: invisible spray, solid stick, and invisible cream. It's clinically proven 72-hour odor control, so it's perfect for long days at the office when we're just talking and talking and talking here at the desk. Since using my Mando, my stink is on the brink, my funk has been debunked, and my stench is quenched. And this is coming from Berg, who has to smell me sometimes. Mando stops odor before it starts, and it's safe to use on your entire body, pits, package, feet, and everywhere in between. Mando comes in 4 cologne quality scents: Bourbon Leather, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, and Clover Woods. I personally love the Bourbon Leather. A lot of people are like, this one is like, it's got leather in the name, but hey, it smells great. I highly recommend using Bourbon Leather. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code Breakroom. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Breakroom at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. We also want to thank HelloFresh today, America's #1 meal kit. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. HelloFresh is a game changer, particularly after a long day of work when you don't have the energy to do all the shopping, the chopping, the cooking, and cleaning for a full meal. HelloFresh makes it easy to find time to eat well with 50 wholesome, hassle-free meals to choose from each week delivered to your door. There's over 100 add-on items you can add to your weekly box, like quick breakfast, packable snacks, and beverages, and more. Plus, for those nights when you're really in a rush, HelloFresh's new ready-made meals go from the fridge to your fork in 3 minutes. We've been using HelloFresh for ages now. One of my favorites is the udon stir fry with pulled pork and vegetables. So good. It's quicker, cheaper, and tastier than delivery. Also, the Southwest style chicken bowl is really good. The chicken is super moist, flavorful, and has just the right amount of kick. Get up to 10 free meals and a free high protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast. 1 item per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/HelloFreshPodcast. Thanks again to HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, for sponsoring our channel.
Do you think that Kier is responsible for the Scouts' fertility problems? Or do you think
we don't know what her last name is? We don't know if she's a Scout.
I'm just putting them
together. They purposely don't show her last name.
I was looking at her hand motion. It's SC.
Oh,
so she was
okay,
at that point.
okay.
They were married, and I think she took his last name.
Okay.
But we don't know her maiden name. I looked on the door placard when he visited her at her office, and is that Casey? It's too blurry.
That's what
see.
I wanted to know too.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if her real name is Miss Casey.
It's hard to even theorize about this, because if you say that Lumon as a company gave her some kind of toxin that made her infertile, that makes potentially the Lumon company even more evil, a new level of evil that I just think is just disgusting. On the other hand, if it is just like Gemma and Mark were going through this due to whatever biological factors that they've had in their lives, that makes their story more universal and relatable. So I don't want to theorize in a way that deprives their story as something that people can get meaning from, and just say shit like this does happen in couples' lives. And I don't want to, sometimes if you say that there was a villainous organization that caused that, it can kind of strip it of a way for people to relate to it.
Sure. I bring it up, and I'm sure many of us, myself included, have people in their lives who've gone through things similar to this. It's very, very, very heartbreaking. I only bring it up because Lumon is sort of a medical company. They make pharmaceuticals, and these IVF, we assume to be IVF treatments. I don't know what's in that shot provided by Lumon. So, I thought that question might be apropos. You're right. It would be additionally devastating and monstrous if the company was behind something like that.
There's the moment where she sneezes in her office, and that I think is from the blood drive onward, was there something that they did? I think it's worth questioning. I just start to get a little uncomfortable even theorizing about it.
So I'll circle back then to the question about the left hand in the in the Allentown room. What's that about? Is it that she wrote so many thank you notes that her right hand was dead and she had to switch hands? Or is her innie severed in a way that it just happens to be left-handed?
Yeah.
Was this extra stress placed on her by Maurer to
make it even
make
more...
it harder, make it more challenging, time-consuming?
I mean, the handwriting is dreadful, right?
Very bad.
So if it was that her innie is left-handed, I would assume it would be slightly better. But it's so terrible. I think it's just, we've seen them sorting the numbers, and they say like, oh, you'll feel something. You'll feel like dread and discomfort. And so now I think it's not a leap to say, well, they're sort of reading those emotions. Like whenever she's feeling dread or discomfort, they see those numbers and I think that this is, if you already hate writing thank you notes, which it was established that she did, and it's already a pain in the ass to write that many, I think making it even worse, any way to amp up the discomfort, which I also think was what That I Love You was about. Like that plus he obviously does kind of love her. He's, or at least he's obsessed with her. I don't want to attribute it to.
Drummond says something like, we'll have to lose her after Cold Harbor.
Yeah. And then he says, but how
Here.
could she ever learn to love a beast?
Yeah, I think when you're writing thank you notes by hand, which you have to do it by hand, making one mistake at the very end of a thank you note, if you just write an I when you meant to write an E, it's you have to start over. So using your left hand just makes that process even more precarious.
Tedious. And I agree.
So we see Gemma go into all of these rooms. Is it my assumption shared with you guys that almost in real time she's having these stressful moments, and upstairs on the MDR floor they are, tapped into her brain somehow and caching all of these scary numbers? It feels like it's happening in real time.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me.
I suppose Mark is 96% done with Cold Harbor, but she's never entered that room. So maybe Mark has to finish Cold Harbor before a room unlocks. I don't know. That part of it was a little
I think
blurry for me.
Once he finishes it, they're clearly done with her role in this. So my concern is that then they put her into the meat grinder.
I was wondering, she said she's never been in that room, or she said
it
halfway through the episode it hasn't been labeled yet, but now it does, and it's Cold Harbor. I wonder if she did at that point on start to go in there and we just didn't see it, because we started to fast forward through other ones, and there's a whole landscape in there, or whatever it is, whatever Cold Harbor means. Cold Harbor maybe it's just the moment of her death.
Yeah.
Cold Harbor could be
concern.
hitting the tree and then maybe careening into the lake or something.
Yep.
Yeah, so Cold Harbor just refers to, that's why the nurse asked her, would you prefer a mudslide or suffocation? Or no, what's it called? Suffocation or drowning? And she said drowning. And correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't drowning and suffocating the same thing? You're getting asphyxiated.
And you know what? Adam Scott and Ben Stiller on the Severance podcast this morning alluded to something similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it was Cold Harbor is the moment of her death. And just that fear as you're losing oxygen from whatever.
Which also, these tests are very Blade Runner-y, right? Right? That to me, that was the vibe that I got in Blade Runner, where you're you find a turtle in the desert and it's on its back. What do you do? And it's whatever the answer is supposed to let you know. And I think it sort of seems to me like they're asking it to see if there's any bleed over from her memories, right? Because they keep saying, is the Severance holding? Yeah. Does she remember anything? So it seems like everything that they're asking is designed to test those severed walls to basically be does she remember when she died? Does she remember Mark? Sort of the similar to in season 1 when Cobell was watching, and then that was sort of why they showed us in the previously on when Milchick was it's better that they don't remember each other, because it would be bad if they remember things And I think that's to make them, like, I think the suffocation thing is basically like, hey, do you remember when you died in that car? No? Great.
Right. Well, and at one point, Maurer asks Gemma, do you remember which room made your mouth hurt?
Uh-huh.
And so they are doing some kind of memory testing for outies, too, to make sure that, they're still retaining their memories even after being innie split a few times and going into a bunch. She goes into 6 rooms in one day, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a good question, right? These tests, are we witnessing sort of like Lumon's attempt to sort of perfect a version of Severance that they haven't been able to do before? All of the other innies that we've seen so far, to my memory, have been singular innies.
Well, we don't know, I guess.
You have your innie, but Gemma seems to be horcruxed into a bunch of different innie personalities. Mm-hmm. So I guess if that is a new thing for Lumon, you're right, we don't know, but that seems to be the case. What's the purpose of this new type of Severance?
I think that, like, for whatever reason, Lumon believes that what makes a soul pure are these kind of triggering scenarios and these woe-inducing memories, even if you want to call them memories, that kind of hardens the soul and purifies it into, like, the best version of it. So I think what they did is they found these partners that can go through these scenarios. One can go through the trauma while the other one kind of quantitatively bottles that trauma, and then it's inputted somewhere else where they're able to 3D print it into whatever, or they're able to like encode that into the person's chip, and then they now come out as like a better version of what they were before, like not only reincarnated but like a purified, enlightened soul. Some
kind of going clear, you could call it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Erik. I think if everyone is the result of all of their experiences, and you have a traumatic experience, I think this is their attempt to, going back to the Dieter Egan story of like, he was sort of the bad twin. And also you must eliminate from yourself childish folly. I think they're trying to perfect a human being that is free from the sins and traumatic experiences of their other selves, which is why they focus so much on the last episode about like, well, an innie can go to heaven even if their outie has done terrible things. I think they're trying to make the clearest human being.
It's just such a dour way of looking at human nature. Like, what's missing from this equation is, don't you think what makes a great person is like not just turmoil and trauma, but like catharsis, learning, like redemption, healing? Like, there's so many other things that like a soul needs to be a good soul in life. Like, yes, challenge that soul, but also heal that soul on the other side of that challenge. And there's no example in what Lumon is putting these souls through of like, hey, doesn't it feel good after you have a fight with your spouse to make up with your spouse? Isn't the best sex in the world make-up sex for a reason? Like, or can't you say like, oh, when you didn't know something, but you were challenged and you came out of it and you're like, you know what? I learned a lot from that. That light bulb going off on the other side of the storm is more important than the storm.
Yeah, but this is why they're a crazy cult.
This is why they're awful.
It is. And I mean, it is, like a few people likened it, again, not to keep harping on this, to Scientology and going clear, and clearly when Sandra Bernhard is there and she's got those 2 rocks and there's all these things, that is very Scientology coded. Yes. And it sort of is like this idea of like, well, eventually you'll get to this point where you're the pinnacle of existence. And I think that's part of what they're trying to do is create the perfect unburdened human.
Yep.
Sign me up,
Yeah.
We've been trying to, John.
Thank you.
You're on a wait list, a long wait list.
The elevator's right there.
One thing that unites all of us on the Breakroom is that we have to watch ourselves on camera almost every day. And that means we're very keyed in to how we look on camera. When it's your job, it's not just vanity, okay? It's professionalism. I don't want to make any of you vomit out there from the way that I look at any given time. Lately, I've been noticing that my hair, it was looking a little dull, a little less full than usual. So I poked around for some new hair products and I stumbled on Kitsch. Kitsch makes these rice water protein shampoo and conditioner bars. Yeah, shampoo and conditioner in a bar. And I really like them for a couple reasons. One, apparently rice water is like a secret shampoo superpower. I didn't know about it before I found Kitsch. It repairs damaged follicles and prevents split ends. The bars cleanse and condition your hair and scalp to encourage overall hair length and density. Plus, as an added bonus, they're solid, meaning by using Kitsch, you're helping to reduce our reliance on single-use plastics. Kitsch bars are also completely free of some of the most difficult to pronounce chemicals you find in most hair products. You know, those phthalates, parabens, silicones, and sulfates. Those are chemicals you don't want on your hair, in your body, anything like that. Each bar is under $11 with our discount, or under $21 for both if you get the shampoo and conditioner set. Kitsch ships to over 90 countries, so no matter where you live, better hair can come to you. Use the link in the description or our code BREAKROOM to get 25% off your order, which will auto-apply at checkout. Thank you to Kitsch.
Okay, Erik, your breakdown for this episode is coming out on the New Rockstars channel if you're watching this live within the next couple of hours.
Hell yeah.
But I was sitting in on the recording, and I know your thoughts here. The scene that a coworker caught me crying in the office while I was watching was when Gemma's leaving for charades.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she says goodbye and I love you to Mark, and he is sort of absorbed in his work or whatever he's doing and misses the I love you, and she has to kind of come back and he says, oh, you know, of course I love you. You know, there's a certain number of people coming out of this episode who think maybe Gemma did not die and maybe was lying to Mark and went to Lumon to go get some kind of fertility treatment and maybe went there voluntarily, obviously probably not knowing what to expect, but you know, potentially did this on purpose.
Yeah.
I have a couple of issues with that, namely that she and Mark were both going to go to charades, and Mark sort of opted out.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that take. I know that you think Gemma did die, and I think I agree with you.
Yeah, I could totally see that. There's also a way to interpret it where Gemma from the beginning was honeypotting Mark. Like, why did she sit down in the seat right next to him when she could have sat anywhere else? My answer to that why is maybe there was love at first sight when they passed each other in the library, and these two had passed each other on campus and were like, you know what, I want to get to know them. So I don't like the interpretation that she was honeypotting him from the beginning. I want to believe that there was true love here and that Lumon as a company is exploiting it. Because to me, that is like my only way I can see hope coming out of this show.
Yeah.
The option, the final night they talk to each other, if she was secretly actually driving to Lumon and she faked her death, that just bestows upon the character of Gemma a level of deceit and conspiracy that I just don't know if Dichen is the actress's name. Dichen Lachmann is playing that scene with. I really think it was just like she was going to charades, something bad happened, and I think in order for Cold Harbor and for whatever Lumon is working on with Mark and Gemma's partnership, in order for that to be so miraculous that Drummond and everybody at the company's like, all systems go on this, is it has to be something about immortality. We have to have had a corpse, and we successfully resurrected that corpse, because if it is just something else, like what is then that something else? If it's just a question about fertility, I get that. That was like a big theme on Lost. The island, women who were infertile were able to conceive on the island. So I get that. I just think the idea of eternal life and conquering death seemed to be implicit in the text of this episode with the title of Chikai Bardo and the phases of life and death in Buddhism. So that's why I think she actually did die. And that was a pure goodbye. That was just a sweet nothing on her way out the door.
Evan, something from the chat?
Also, yeah, just one clarification point. Latin Blue in the live Twitch chat saying maybe as in many blood drives, she was assigned that seat. So just let it go off of, you know.
Which is interesting that Lumon would have been like, you two seem like fun rabbits. Yeah.
I will say, like, the one thing that sort of puts me in the camp of, I don't think she faked her own death. I don't think she would do that to Mark. I do think she was promised something, because when she says, I want to go home, she seems pretty convinced like all she needs to do is be like, hey, I'm out. And so I think that there was something where they said to her either after they resurrected her or took her or intercepted her or whatever, that they said, hey, we can help you with your like medical issues, this is what you've been filling out, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? You can tap out at any time. Because she seems so, she's just so like, hey, I'm done. I want to go home. I want to go see Mark. And when the Beast is like, oh, Mark remarried. You've been gone a long time. I think that they tweaked what they told her. I don't think they said to her like, hey, by the way, like you died and we're torturing you for, I think that they probably said like, hey, your husband sort of thinks you're dead. But like, good news, like we can fix all of this, but you're gonna sort of have to trust us. And this is the moment where she's like, yeah, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah, because she does ask what happens after Cold Harbor, and they sort of say everybody dies, and there's going to be an apocalypse, or however you want to interpret that.
She thinks that what they're saying is like, it's over, you get to go home.
I'm not sure that she does think that, because she does say, can you speak like a normal fucking person for 2 seconds? Which, of course, is how we would all think. When
I think what he says to her might be one of the most critical exchanges of the episode to tell us, or to clue us into what's going on. It was almost like some Christian language of like, Kier will cleanse you of your sins the same way he has cleansed Mark of his, or you will be able to see the world will be able to see you, and you'll be able to see the world through this kind of enlightened eyes. Like, it's almost like, and Christ shall come back to the world and redeem us of our sins and purify the sinners and forgive all sins and allow people to enter into heaven. It just feels like once Cold Harbor's done, we'll be able to repeat the success with you with this corpse we got in the back of Kier Egan that's just cooking, simmering on the stove or on ice, and then all will be cleansed.
Yes, that very much felt to me like you'll see Mark again in Kier's version of heaven.
Yeah.
Is what I took away from that. I agree. Had very Christian vibes.
I do like that.
Raised in that religion.
All of the chatter online has been people thirsting for Mark now that he has a 5 o'clock shadow, a better hairstyle, and better clothes. Everyone's like, wait, what? Every other post that I see is either people that are like, I knew he was hot all along. Or like people being like, whoa, is this dude hot? It's like 90% of the posts have been like, yeah, that's how he bagged Gemma.
You know, now that they've doubled down on Milchick being a true villain, we got a thirst trap over someone new, right? or thirst over someone new. I want to talk to you guys about that Milchick interaction. He's still wearing his motorcycle jacket. He's very out of breath. Clearly, he came from somewhere recently when Gemma was escaping, but to me, that seemed like a 45-second tops escape.
Yeah,
right?
There was not a lot of time.
Is that elevator from the exports to the MDR floor, the Severance floor, just very, very long? Like, how did he get there so fast?
Is it time dilated? So the time moves slower down there?
I mean, maybe. I think everyone was hoping that Milchick was on the way to becoming a good guy, right? Like, we were like, he got that weird racist painting. He tried to talk to what's her name about it. They wouldn't get rid of the thing on his screen, and he wasn't into that. So it seemed like they were leading us towards like a Milchick redemption arc, and this like squashed that.
Mm-hmm. I wanted her to just tackle him. I wanted her to hall brawl.
But that's not who MS.CASEY is. That's not who MS.CASEY is. If it was Gemma would have tackled him. MS.CASEY does what she's told.
Yeah, it sucks. But there was still part of her that was like, I'm up here for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, it's like what Petey said, like you keep feeling some emotions on the other side of a severance barrier, and you don't know what those emotions are attached to, but you feel it. And even Dr. Maurer was asking, do you feel gaiety? Do you feel stuff in the hallway afterwards?
He wanted her to say, like, do you feel like you're in love with any man in a Christmas sweater in a room? Or maybe a handsome flight attendant who brings you the food?
Even though the plane's crashing? You got lost. I got that either Yellow Jackets or the Alive, plane.
I specifically got lost from when he hits the ceiling and then the ground, because that was a lost shot right there.
There was
when Kate is in the seat and she sees the...
Absolutely. Yeah. There were a lot of I thought, like, David Lynch-esque moments in this episode, a lot of Terrence Malick-esque moments in this episode. They said that Ben Stiller was sort of acting as second unit director for this episode and grabbed a 16mm Bolex and shot some of those like picnic scenes or them in the kitchen, which was fun to watch. So shout out to Ben for grabbing those. It should be mentioned that the director of this episode. What a fantastic episode. What a very well-directed episode. Her name...
Jessica Lee Gagne.
She was the cinematographer for the series.
And you can tell, too. You can tell that this is shot by a cinematographer because every shot is gorgeous.
It's
not that normal,
beautiful.
average directors can't do this, but everything is shot so cinematically and with thought of where every single thing is, where every single shadow is. So bravo on your...
Yeah, she
directing
deserves
outing.
She deserves all the flowers in the world, and I thought it was very interesting. She had an interview with Esquire that came out today, and she said that she was not going to return for season 2. And then Ben sort of was like, "Hey, we really want to have you back. Here's the synopses for all 10 episodes of season 2." And offered her to be able to direct an episode.
Hell yeah.
And I just want to say, in the interview, she said she really connected with the themes of this episode and thought she would be a good fit to direct this episode. And I just want to say, big shout out to the team that produces this show, because usually episodes like this are reserved for the Ben Stiller or the Dan Erickson or whoever. The showrunner usually directs these episodes, or the big producer, whoever it is. And to give an episode as important to this, or as important as this, to the cinematographer who'd never directed television before, shows a lot of confidence in who she is as a director, and she knocked it out of the park. I'm sure their working relationship over the course of season 1 was very informative of them being able to make this decision, but absolutely incredible work.
I think it shows a lot of collaboration happening on this show. Like when Dan Erickson was writing these scripts and Ben Stiller was directing the pilot, like it was really essentially Jessica who came in there with the Zolly effect. She invented so much of the visual language of this show, and I think looking back at season 1, they recognized that gift in her and that contribution. And how important was it? Not just the Zolly shots, but just the way shots were framed. I noticed how they show Dichen's eyes in close-up when she's talking to the nurse, and the nurse kind of requires a response that forces her to just smile. And she does smile, but it's almost like with Mr. Beast, how they put, and his eyes never change. Her eyes don't change there because she's not really smiling, but by the end, the final shot of the episode is her smiling, and you can tell just from her eyes. It's the Whiplash shot. The final shot of Whiplash where you just see the student and the teacher, and you can tell that creepy smile, but it's just the way it changes their cheeks and the wrinkles around their eyes. But in this case, it's like a pure, beautiful thing, the difference between a forced smile and a real smile. So it's full of examples of Jessica seeing that. And really, what I love about this is a lot of times, if you look on film Twitter, they'll say cinematographers don't often make great directors. I think Ethan Hawke went after cinematographers a bit in an interview where he's like, cinematographers are great. They understand the lighting, the aesthetics of the frame, but they often don't get the emotional point of view of the character in this moment and how to telegraph that in the action of the camera. This, I feel like, is a counterpoint to that because Jessica nailed that in this episode.
Yeah.
Every shot is emotionally motivated, and she understood how to work with an editor to convey that too.
Yeah, oftentimes in television too, you can kind of have directors coming and going because the showrunner is the person who is the top dog, and the person sort of making sure episode to episode there's continuity there. But I do think on a show like Severance, that's not necessarily as easy for a director to step into this role as it would be on a show like NCIS or something like that, where they've been going for a million years and it's sort of episodic and week to week. But this was such a specifically artful episode of TV, and I'm sure Jess feels very lucky that she has an incredible cast to work with, but I wasn't sort of previously aware of Dichen Lachmann's work before this great episode. Of course, she's been in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was in
Dollhouse,
bro. She's had some very meaty roles in the past, but I think this probably stands on its own as some of her best work. She was also incredible.
Yeah, really, really cool.
I want to get to a quick quote from this episode that was really kind of interesting. Mark says this to Gemma specifically. He says, "There's a kid out there waiting for us. You just got to reach out and grab her." And that's just like a nice thing a husband would say to his wife about this infertility problems that they're having. But the show is so specifically written that, of course, we look for double meanings in lines of dialogue like that. Is there anything that you guys thought of when you heard that line of dialogue in particular? Or is it just sort of like an allusion to Lumon and the work that she's going to have to do with all that kind of crap?
I did know that people were going to immediately be like, see, it's Miss Wong. Miss Wong's their daughter. He said her. And I knew that was going to be sort of the going theory. I mean, it's, at this point, the question is like, how long?
Before you continue, Maurer also says when he lies to Mark, he's been remarried and has a daughter.
Right. They always choose a daughter. And also, like, there is, we don't know how long Gemma has been down here, really. We don't know if during any of these treatments they maybe like harvested her eggs and did create a child. There's also, like a theory that Miss Huang is a clone of Gemma instead of their daughter. But I honestly don't know. To me, this sort of read as a husband trying to console his wife more so than he had any knowledge. But I do know that the use of her twice in one episode has got people thinking of Miss Huang.
Yeah, I get that interpretation of it. I think based off of this flashback, I don't know if that is the span of time of the age Miss Huang is now.
Right.
Like, I think it does look like Adam Scott, but is it like Party Down Adam Scott? Is it Parks and Rec Adam Scott? It kind of seems like Adam Scott like 5 years ago.
But also, like, I assume that they're Boba Fetting this, that they're feeding him some growth hormones, and that Miss Huang could have been born a month ago, and now she's little Boba Fett.
Yeah. I think, who was it, Ben Stiller, or who said that, like, they watched Adam Scott in Step Brothers, and that's how they knew how good of an actor he was?
Oh, yeah, yes.
He is
very good.
Incredible
good.
in Step Brothers.
Against his
and
own
Step
type.
Brothers was 2008, and that was, 16 years ago? It would have been about 12 years before Severance started being developed. So I don't know if that... if they were considering that timeline. I looked at it more cosmically, that line. Like, it surprised me because, like, I think of Mark as just a very grounded realist. We have any Mark who is just like a loyal Boy Scout company man, and a Boy Scout, I might say. Pretty boring. Outie Mark is just a grieving alcoholic and someone who can be very nasty, but someone who seems to be pretty grounded in realism. But every once in a while, he shows that he also is, like, kind of a believer in cosmic forces. And him saying she's just out there, we got to reach out to grab her, implies that there is a soul out there that we have to bring into the world, and we just got to believe. When he said she's not really here, she's just not really with us right now, or Irv isn't here, he's just not with us, or he's not dead, he's just not here. I think that is like something that someone who believes in an afterlife would say, or just like, what does death mean? It just means that a lack of a presence with us in this moment. But it doesn't mean that they're extinguished from all of the universe. So I was surprised by this, and it told me that either Mark, who is a World War I professor, has always kind of had these tendencies, or Gemma inspired this in him as someone who is a Tolstoy. I mean, what she brought into that relationship was, the death of Ivan Ilyich and War and Peace and Anna Karenina and the works of Tolstoy. And specifically, the selection that she mentioned is kind of like, not Tolstoy's deathbed conversion, but just later in his life, he did, have a spiritual reawakening, Bob Dylan-esque. Where he just had later stage, like, actually, I am a believer of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And then Gemma kind of instilled that in him. So I just view that as, like, Mark is someone who has a spiritual inclination.
You mentioned Irv. We didn't see Irv in this episode, but we have seen his paintings of the exports elevator hallway before. I know we've talked about this a lot, but I want to kind of circle back to that because we learned a lot more about the exports floor, or whatever you want to call it, in this episode. Is Irving someone who's been down there in the past? Do you think he's made his way out somehow? Like, where are we with Irv and his relationship with that?
Yeah, I don't know if he personally has been down there. I think he was clearly gathering intel about different Lumon things on the outside. To me, this is like so clearly a sort of like Dante's Inferno levels of hell. You know, like there's that first level of hell, which is like, okay, you're not happy, but you're not in eternal torment. And then once we see what Gemma is going through, even the fact that there are different rooms is very Dante's Inferno. Like, oh, here's the section for these sinners, and here's the section for this torture. And I think that if someone like Petey, for instance, had gotten out, that would have stuck with them. Like if they had been reintegrated, I think they would be like, hey, by the way, like there was one time when I was freaking tortured by being brought down a level and forced to relive my worst nightmares over and over and over. So I don't think Irv has necessarily been down there. I do think he's in contact with someone on the outside who has experienced it.
Do we think that like Irving, Dylan, and Helly, and before that, Petey, who were they doing numbers for?
Great question.
If Petey was there before Mark was there, was Petey doing numbers for Gemma, or are there different floors for people who were important to them?
I mean, Dylan was like the top dog, right? Like he was the one who kept completing projects. So I don't know. It seems like maybe it's all a bit of a puzzle. We only heard about Cold Harbor this season, so it's a good question. Like, what were they working on last season? Was it steps to get to Cold Harbor, or was it their own going clear?
Yeah, like we have to imagine before Mark or Gemma got taken into this process that there was still a Severance Macrodata refinement
was definitely
process.
12 years old. It's
been
or 20. Much longer than, or 20. It's been much longer than
they have been batching
Gemma's
other people. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of makes me wonder if what we're saying about Mark and Gemma is true, who is that other person? It's obviously not Gretchen for Dylan, because Gretchen has a life as an EMT dispatch driver. Right. Who would it be for Irving? Who would it have been for Petey? Like, Petey had a daughter, but like we don't know if there's like some other person.
Yeah, was Fields down there at some point, and is that why he's so demented now?
Or is it just for random people who had other severed people who had been down there, and for the first time they could get a husband and a wife who loved each other, and that's why this has worked? Is because like they were just doing it for other random people who were just in different parts of that floor.
Gretchen, look out. You're next. Evan.
I'd love to take some questions from the chat here. Obviously, lots to talk about in this episode. Lots of people having great theories in the chat, chatting along, talking with each other. We love to see it. We do these videos live. You're watching after the fact, so keep an eye out on the schedule. Jack Johnson sending in a super chat saying, I totally agree that Gemma 1 is most likely on ice. Mark will eventually get to Gemma, but it won't be the one he knows, and it will be tragic. Yeah, I think that's highly possible, right? There's like one of many, many personalities down there, it seems, that he could be discovering, whether it's any Mark, outie Mark, or the reintegrated Mark fully functioning.
We've also seen, sorry to interrupt you, but we've seen how difficult reintegration is when there's just two personalities, right? Like,
well, I don't think Gemma would ever want to reintegrate with any of these people.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if she ever did get reintegrated, there's a big difference between like, oh my God, there's one other person's memories invading my own versus like, oh, there's 12 other people's memories invading my own. I've just like seen the dentist 80 times in a span of 30 seconds in my brain.
Yeah, and that is horrifying.
It is. Really. It's horrifying.
Kofi and King's Portal, as well as many, many other people asking about the other refiners, or the watchers, rather, we see underneath. Yes. I'd love to get into that. I also, to kick things off, I'd also love to share this comment from Jason Guy Smiley, who says the other team is Macrodata refinement.
I love that. That's a good name for them.
I do. I saw a theory online that said, "Are these the people that they saw at the Ortbo?" And I couldn't get a good enough shot.
So they're credited differently.
That's what I thought. I thought they were different, but you know how people online are. They speak with such authority.
These are credited. They're different actors. They're also credited as watchers rather than shadows.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, what's the deal with this this watching floor? What are they there for? What is their purpose? Obviously, you get this weird moment where like one of the watchers is watching Mark, who's not there because of the nosebleed situation that happened in episode 6. Gave us a clear picture of sort of the timeline of these different episodes, which was helpful. What's the deal? How many fucking people are in this crazy labyrinth and are
and why do they sort of look like them?
Caricatures of each other.
Why do they sort of look like them?
And are there other people from shit? What's that guy's name who broke his lease?
Bob Balaban.
But did they have to grab a bunch of people off the street that were bald and thin
They're
and short
like,
to be watchers for
don't
them?
you think like the 4 watchers, they were dressed to look like Helly,
Yes.
Mark, Irving, and Dylan, but they were wearing community theater wigs in the same type of like clear costumes that Dr. Maurer was wearing. So it's like they wanted them to dress up, but didn't look like authentic. That wasn't a normal, like well-blended wig. That was a bulky, dumb wig that guy was wearing.
But to me, it seems like their whole goal is to strengthen this connection between Gemma's emotions and what Mark is sorting. And you have to get those emotions through this extra layer of people. And so I wouldn't be surprised if all of Lumon was like, okay, let's strengthen this connection. Let's make them eat the same food. Let's make them dress the same way. And it's just sort of a like, now it's a direct line down to Gemma's emotions. I could be totally wrong. It could just be like a weird thing that it's like, hey, you guys like to dress up when you go to theme parties, right? Come dressed at work as your favorite Mark.
What? Who likes to dress up at work? I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it's like maybe like...
Why are you wearing that ridiculous thing?
Well, functionally, I think Lumon has several layers of people who are observing this person, who are testing this person. This is like classic Lost, right? You had the Swan Station where Desmond and Clancy Brown were, and then you had the Pearl Station, whose job it was to monitor the Swan Station. And so what we are seeing there is kind of like the Pearl Station. They are just there to take notes of people who are observing something else and just see how they react.
12 p.m. got up to crap.
Yeah. And there is
12:05 came back from crapping.
I think there's another station watching the watchers. And it's just like a big, long circle of accountability at Lumon. And there's just everybody's watching everyone. That's what I think. The reason why I think they dressed up like them is just in case something glitches out with the screen and then your visage happens to be on the screen in the background. They're like, Mark Scout might just think he's seen his reflection for a moment, and his reflection's a little off.
There are people inside of the computers.
Yeah, I think just in case it glitches and then their face is burned onto the screen in some way, that they just see it as their reflection.
I'm certain that we'll either learn more about them in the future or we'll never hear from them ever again. And they're just going to be like creepy, weird folks. But hey, they were creepy and they were weird.
That's true.
Lots of people asking or mentioning that the Chikai Bardo that Gemma is kind of like filling out an illustration to her or whatever she's doing. It was we saw those cards before from season 1. O&D made them. O&D we saw in season 1, they make a lot of the same types of things. Does that kind of lend credence to different rooms down there, like more people undergoing this process, like multiple floors, multiple rooms, or is it truly all just for Gemma?
No, I think that we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what is in this building.
Yeah. 100%.
It is interesting. I'm surprised we haven't seen any kind of missing persons thing happening in Kier PE or anything like that.
Well, they know how to cover their tracks.
Yeah.
I guess they have friends at the
morgue.
And that's good enough. That's where they're getting, and everyone down there maybe has been dead in a past life.
Or people who volunteered. People H.H. Holmes targeted people who were just visiting the World's Fair in Chicago and were leaving their families, and that's why he was able to rack up so many bodies, is he targeted lonely people.
Also, some of them are probably, born and bred. Listen, where is Shelley Miscavige? But no, if they're born and bred in this sort of cult-like religion, maybe Miss Huang is the daughter of a Lumon employee, and they're like, hey, we're gonna borrow her for 8 hours a day while she works this job, and the parents are like, okay, and then there wouldn't be anyone on the outside that would be like, hey, where's that little girl that was just in school with us a week ago? Should we look into this? If they're born into this Lumon society, then no one's looking for them, guys.
True. Yeah. Sarah Jordan mentioned that we've seen them make hatchets and watering pots. Man, a room full of hatchets? That's scary as hell.
I mean, that would be great if they ever try and like escape from
I was gonna
Lumon,
say
and
Gemma,
it's like a room
Gemma
escape
versus
where it's
Milchick
like,
with in the hatchet room.
Yeah.
Does her any persona have some kind of like she has to go in and train for fighting a lot, and maybe she'll have a matrix mind and can somehow fight her way out?
That guy 2410 says, do you think that the fact that they all had that they had so many rooms inside proves that the Orpo was inside?
Yeah.
I don't know if
think
it proves anything, but I think it strengthens a lot of these theories. Man, that Orpo was just so massive. But maybe there's the Lumon building extends through all of Kier PE underground somewhere.
I mean,
we don't know.
if there are multiple underground things, like you could have placed a fake sky up there and pump the AC.
Again, when I was a little kid and I went on Pirates of the Caribbean, man, that felt like I was outside.
Yeah.
Even though I was in a big
All those
old
little
warehouse.
stars, and it
That's
feels
true.
giant.
Yeah, Disney. One old warehouse, huh? Let's think about that.
interesting.
Huh? Madison Pruitt on the YouTube asking, why do you think they let Gemma remember Mark and her life when she is downstairs?
Oh, I think it's
good
to
question.
control her. Right?
To give her hope,
These
right?
things,
Yeah,
and maybe
I
you
think
can
that
be reunited.
the second you take away someone's hope, then she's just gonna bash her brain against a wall and kill herself. I think this is like to give her something to hope for.
Well, I think we saw that exact thing in this episode. She didn't bash her brains out, but she had that conversation with Maurer and probably took from it, I'm not getting out of here and let me escape.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they are using that as a carrot so that she continues to go into these rooms. There's a future for her and Mark.
Yeah.
I think you can't have all severed. I think you need to have the baseline soul identity somewhere in there. So like just something to go back to. And if it's just all severed quarters in houses or rooms in your head, like you need to have the actual person who can there to like reset things. Because I think the purpose of them is to like bring this person back to life, but you need the original soul there to purify it. I don't think you can completely brainwash someone 100% of the time.
Minky, I said this was a fun comment I liked before. The sweater that Dr. Maurer was wearing is probably a sweater that Gemma knitted for Mark. The creepy doctor wore it to evoke feelings of love from Gemma. Do you think they got more things from their house? Probably, right?
Forced her to knit, yeah.
Oh, yeah, or
I
forced her to
also
knit,
remember like Mrs. Cobell was like stealing things, like she sort of like, and specifically like Gemma's things, like she was stealing things. So maybe that was another way to strengthen that connection, to evoke stronger feelings. I mean, smell is apparently like the strongest evoker of feelings. So if they do get something that smells like Mark, then she's gonna get all horned up.
Right, Eric and I smell each other every day before we start our work day. Go ahead, Evan.
Just some final questions about Gemma and kind of Mark and this relationship. So Shri saying that his last words to Gemma were "I'm sorry," and Miss Casey's goodbye to him was "I forgive you." Oof, that's some tough stuff. Kawaii K saying, asking Breakroom, why do you think all her food why all of her foods are colored droplet flavored instead of normal food?
Who here's seen Snowpiercer?
Yeah.
I don't know what that food is. They can put any label on it.
Soylent
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It could be an ease thing, but also like they clearly want to control everything that's going into her body.
Yeah, 100%, right? To control the tempers or whatever. To make her optimal for whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah, I bet they have stuff like this, like for MREs, for I assume a vast army that they are building somewhere.
Yeah.
And they just do that as little mess. If you have like an actual kale, salad, some of those pieces of kale are going to drop down and rot when you have to sit. But if it's just this, you just eat it in chunks. It's mush. It's nutrient packed, and it's good.
I thought it was good.
I'd eat it. I would if I could sign up for a service.
Potentially
This
psychotic.
episode is brought to you by Lumon Foods.
All right. So then the last question here, we're seeing some questions about, Cold Harbor and Mark's relationship with it. Kobe Wankanobi asking, do you think Mark is stuck in 96% on Cold Harbor because he has simply stopped doing his work, or does his, status as being somewhat reintegrated prevent him from getting the proper emotions or something to complete it? Now that we know, and Drogo asking something similar.
I don't know if we've seen him back at work since his nosebleed.
Have. Maybe not since his nosebleed, but there is that moment where he is sort of being standoffish to Helly and Dylan and like goes and starts refining, and that's after he has started being reintegrated.
Yeah, but they specifically say the nosebleed set us back, and I think that was the last time we saw him at work. So it's possible that he's just been calling in sick to work, and they're like, well, crap.
I mean, it does seem also that like Mark is going on excursions, right? They're visiting mammalians nurturable and, going all over the place here, having sex in weird severed floor rooms that no one's working in. So I think it's that I've taken it as he's just being a bad employee and it hasn't gotten back to work, but I don't know, maybe we'll learn more about that next episode.
And I wonder too, the timeline of this, and forgive me if you guys have already discussed this, the timeline of how we're seeing the information and Gemma's experience being fed to us. There's that scene where they're watching Mark, they're watching Gemma. He's working on Cold Harbor before she's even entered the room. Does that factor into, some of the things that you guys have been suggesting this episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it before. The finale episode, or the finale of season 2, is called Cold Harbor. So I think that will have a lot more answers about what Cold Harbor is or what that room looks like in a couple of episodes here. I'll be very curious to see what happens next episode. Right, like this show, especially this season, has loved to do like a whoa, that was a crazy episode, and then we sort of jump into the next episode in a completely different place.
Yeah.
I think we're going to open with Cobell next episode, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
So it's difficult. I think the show is taking its time with Cold Harbor because they want to tell the story the way they want to tell the story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. One super chat before I'll let you get back to your segue, John. Jack Johnson saying we will see 2 huge Jurassic Park-sized gate doors to enter the Orpo room. Can't believe Irving's watcher was missing from the desk. Yeah, that's their they don't need him anymore. They don't need another watcher if Irving's gone,
so
right?
Sad.
Yeah.
So sad. Well, the thing that I wanted to bring up is we had a mention of this last episode, and then this episode was all about Mark and Gemma trying to have a child, but Devin mentions this birthing cabin last episode. And we know a little bit about the birthing cabin. We know that the Demona birthing retreat and that facility. Is there anything linking sort of what's happening there to what could be happening here? Is there a world in which, Mark and Gemma, I don't know. I just thought it was curious that we had this stuff happening in season 1, and it's kind of came back to the literally last episode, and now this whole episode is about fertility and that kind of stuff. Do you think the show is going to draw a line there between those two things, or was that just to kind of show, hey, people do fucked up things with innies, and
I think it's a world-building detail. I think it's an example of the way Lumon is trying to sell the severance procedure to the public and just show how it can apply to their lives. Like, hey, would you like to skip the pain of childbirth? Hey, there's a way we can do that. And why people might sign up for this service. And so maybe we find out other ways that they have marketed and sold severance to different corners of society. But because that's politically linked, that there was a senator and his wife that used this service, I feel like that might be part of the end game of the show. That's Penny Widmore somewhere out there who can save some of these characters by
Not
just
Penny's
asking
retreat.
questions. Yeah. That she can get the media involved, that she can get other kind of legal entities involved to bring Lumon down this way. I feel like they need to have that. It can't just be these people trapped in this one small building. Not a small building, but you know what I mean? Right. I think they're just establishing other ways.
Yeah. I think I did see a theory online that, maybe Gemma can't escape because her chip is reversed, and when she goes up, she severs versus when everyone else goes down. They are severed. I think that the show has built enough of a world to disprove a theory like that, right? It seems like the severance switch can happen wherever. There's the overtime contingency. We saw the Glasgow block. There's things that tell me a severed employee can be switched whenever Lumon wants them to be. And maybe that is something that Mark uses to help Gemma escape. Maybe she gets the Glasgow block and can not be Miss Casey anymore. Be interesting to see. Okay, one thing that Evan put into the script that I want to call him out on specifically. I mentioned I mentioned Cobell a second ago. We were just talking about Devin. Rhagabi. Does she just kind of suck? Obviously, that is what Evan said in the script. She's very afraid of Lumon. That is clear. We thought maybe she was a Lumon mole for a little while. Seems like that's probably not the case after she was so concerned about Devin calling Miss Selvig still in the phone, which I thought was a funny detail there. But calling Miss Cobell, she was very concerned. She even knows Cobell doesn't work at Lumon anymore. She states that plainly.
Can I just say,
I guess Devin tells her that.
As someone who has an older brother who I'm super, super, super close with, like we talk, 10 to 20 times a day.
Wow. That's disturbing.
It's a lot of bits.
I had a relationship with anyone.
It's a lot of bits. It's a lot of Goonies bits. Like this, to me, Devin's reaction here is one of the realest things of this show. When she's like, "You will not touch my brother again." Like this is like, I don't give a crap what you're doing. And Rhagabi is not like, she doesn't get it. Like she's just like not answering questions, and that would also drive me insane to the point where I would probably have to strangle her. But Devin's reaction is totally normal. And this was the first time where I was like, sort of like, oh, Rhagabi sucks. Like her reaction to a concerned sibling sucks.
She's one of the people who caused the problem.
Yeah, she just needed to take 1 minute to be like, I am a doctor. I like reintegrated your brother. This is what we're doing.
Me and Hank.
You and Hank are linked.
Sorry.
We'll never tell.
Stop the show.
Never tell the audience what just happened.
John and his dog are linked by lung love.
Oh, we were
Linked by lung.
That's all it is.
Eric, go for it.
No, I think that's a good observation. I think she does suck. She went from like clubbing Grainer in the back of the head to just now being scared. So I kind of want to know what scared her between now and then to be so fearful.
Yeah.
I mean, also, like, why is she being such a bitch to Devin? Like, why not just be like, hey, I'm going to answer your questions, but can you give me 5 minutes? That's all she had to say.
But if you've noticed, she hasn't really answered any of Mark's questions to like a sustainable degree. Obviously, we're here week to week, kind of like, pulling apart the show. But she has withheld so much from Mark, from someone who now is like trusting her implicitly with his brain.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, does she suck? But what got me when watching the episode, I think a second time, was that the way she speaks is very Lumon-esque. And I wonder how, if she was raised Lumon, like, she's like Cobell, she's Lumon through and through, she was raised by them, she's a soldier. Do you guys think Rhagabi was raised by Lumon, or is somehow super deep cover? Like went really, really deep cover and then was like, okay, I'm like fully, was indoctrinated, but now real mission activate, time to get out.
I do think like there's a lot of real world examples of kids who were brought up in a church or in like Scientology or whatever, who once they hit a certain age are like, wait a minute, is there an alien who's gonna come and scoop me up if I go clear? That doesn't make much sense. So to me, she could very well be someone like. The other thing too that I noticed is that this episode gave me Ethan Rom vibes from Lost, because like who Ethan on Lost was in the real world was a fertility doctor who was then brought to the island, who kidnaps Claire, a pregnant woman. And the fact that we see the beast on the outside, and then he's also the one who's like in charge, like that was a whole Ethan Rom thing to me. So Rhagabi could be someone who was an expert in something very specific on the outside, was recruited by Lumon, worked with them for years, and then all of a sudden was like, is this morally wrong? I think I need
Sure,
to like question it. I think both are likely. To me, she doesn't speak as luminy as like Milchick does. So I think maybe she was an expert who was recruited and then had like a conscience moment where she was like, oh crap. I just put a hole in my 90th person's brain and I feel weird about it.
The one reason I think that maybe she's not born and bred Lumon is actually because of her mistrust of Cobell. Right? She says Cobell was raised in this thing. She's a soldier. If Rhagabi was also raised in Lumon, she would maybe have an opinion of, oh, Cobell has left Lumon like I did, and maybe she is redeemable or something like that. But for her to have such a strong stance against people who were raised inside of Lumon makes me think that maybe she wasn't.
Yeah, she does have a sort of like, no, there's no recruiting these people vibe to her that she wouldn't have if she herself was raised in the church and then changed her mind.
Yeah. I love this comment from April Jones on YouTube saying Devin should have lured Rhagabi back with a tub of cake frosting.
If she only knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was tub of cake icing. My wife was like, it was clearly yogurt. I'm like, no, it was not yogurt.
No, that was frosting.
Or she said cottage cheese or something. I'm like, that was clearly frosting. That was just, she was
Kelly, you just want it to be normal.
Even at some point, we see him take it out of the bag, and it's clearly frosting.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
They did.
She also eats it off a spoon backward, which freaked me out. Anyways, not important. Okay.
Very important.
We usually start these episodes off with a sort of like, what did we learn about Lumon segment? Although we didn't do that last week, we didn't do it this week, mostly because this whole episode was kind of a what did we learn about Lumon episode. We learned a lot. We did. We've all had our own theories. I think we're all sort of charging toward a similar theory of they're doing this to bring Keir Egan back from the grave. Did this episode change any of your guys' thoughts on what Lumon might be doing, update things, introduce new theories that you might be thinking of? Obviously, Lumon could be doing many, many different things, working on many different projects. A TV show usually doesn't do that. I'm sure we're headed toward one sort of answer here. What did this episode do to sort of update your guys' thoughts there?
I now believe that like Lumon, rather than just offering something and waiting for people to come to them and recruiting, they are on an aggressive recruiting mission to gather the blood and the DNA of academic people at least and other people in the world to try to execute this mission. I think it's very creepy that they have blood. And now I'm like, why people are afraid of 23andMe. It's like, you're just giving the government your blood. They're gonna do shit with it that you don't know. Like, I think it's meant to kind of stoke those conspiracy theories and fears, very rational fears some people have, into just like giving their blood and mailing their blood places. Because Lumon's gonna do shit with it.
So Lumon has a lot of control of this town. I thought it was interesting you mentioned Gemma being an academic. Do you think that has any credence to why Lumon would go after someone like that, Russian literature professor? Obviously someone with a brilliant mind might be important for this type of thing, or was that just sort of the show putting Mark and Gemma in the same location as professors at Gans University? Also, where's that kid that wrote All Quiet on the Western Blunt, and is he working at Lumon because he should?
Yeah, I do think...
I think that essay does deserve an A.
I think it does too. I think they both had an appropriate response. I think that, I'm with Erik on one of the reasons why I don't want, Lumon to have put these two people together is because I think seeing their meet cute, for lack of a better term, and their relationship blossom is part of what, is supposed to get you invested in it, right? And I think to then pull the rug out from under us by being like, oh, Lumon recruited her for her brain. I think that this is a couple who came together on their own, struggled with fertility on their own, sort of went through all that stress together. And then Gemma went to this clinic, and from her answers, they were like, oh, she might be a good candidate for our weird eugenics/cryogenics crap that we're trying to pull by making the perfect specimens and putting our owner's, brain into it. I think that that's sort of what it is. I don't think that they sought out like, oh, super smart hottie professor, like let's do something with her. I think that the conditions with her were just exactly right to sort of manipulate a woman who was feeling very vulnerable.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they have like just the blood and DNA sample of millions of people.
Yeah.
And they enter it into like a data matrix, and then they have like an algorithm print out most likely candidates and best candidates.
People are deeply afraid of 23andMe's sort of bankruptcy and selling DNA and that kind of stuff. I wonder if
take my DNA. Make 100 Ginas.
Programs like that. Ancestry.com has my cheek swab. Evan, anything else from the chat?
I was just gonna say that everyone's afraid of sending it to a thinking machine. That's for the Dune Prophecy heads. That one's for Brandon, right there. All right.
Big Dune Prophecy fans here. Big Lumon or Severance fans on the break room as well. We could talk about the show for forever, but we have other stuff we got to get to. So that's going to be it for us today. Please make sure to subscribe to the Break Room channel on YouTube. Give it a follow on Twitch where we do these videos live.
Oh no, the cow got the pineapple.
No.
Also, people are saying it's a
Pineapple upside
goat.
down,
It's
the cow-
a goat. It's not a cow, right? Is it a goat?
It is a goat. I keep calling it a cow.
Gina.
I keep calling it a cow. It's obviously a goat. He's got a little scrub.
Yeah, it's a
Little
goat.
chin scrub.
Well, you four are the goats of the Break Room. Thank you so much for doing the show with me today. Give Break Room NR a follow on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and X. We'll see you guys next week for Severance episode 8. And hey, we'll be here also next week to talk about Daredevil season 2. Baby.
Hell yeah.
Or Daredevil Born Again season 1.
Season 1.
Daredevil season 4. Whatever you want to call it. That's it for us today. We will see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.